Have you ever noticed how a lot of decluttering advice and videos always make it sound so simple, so easy? Even I might be guilty of doing this, but today I thought I would share the reality that no one really talks about. With spring cleaning right around the corner, I always start by decluttering first. And while I do this, I'm going to reveal what I have personally found to be the most encouraging truths within the decluttering process. Because while the end result is always very satisfying, getting there is not usually easy, and it can be quite discouraging at times too. So if you're new to decluttering, or maybe you've been around the block a few times, I hope that you feel uplifted and empowered by the end of this video to keep moving forward. Truth number one, decluttering is not a one-time fix. Unless you plan on your life staying static, which is highly unlikely, decluttering is going to remain a recurring task in your life if you're serious about owning less stuff. Clutter at any scale occurs not only because of overconsumption, but because of life changes, moves, job changes, babies being born, hobby changes. The list goes on. And I've personally been victim to this in saying this will be the last declutter that I do, but then life happens, and months or years later, I find myself needing to reassess what's around me so that it reflects my life and my values in that moment. I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't pressure yourself into believing that you have to declutter your entire life once and for all, or that it's even possible to do that. There's no perfect amount of stuff to own because it's different for everybody, and only you truly know what your essentials are and which items and how many items bring real value into your life. Decluttering can most definitely be a slow and gradual process, and I think that's actually what can make it a truly fulfilling task in our lives versus something that we rush through and regret later. In my own journey, I've learned that letting go does get easier over time, and in gradually decluttering, that's where we eventually find that deeper sense of freedom and contentment in the act of purging our things. Truth number two is that it gets worse before it gets better. The physical action of decluttering one space can lead to temporary chaos in another, and for me personally, the decluttered pile used to be a major source of stress and sometimes even a deterrent to actually decluttering in the first place. But that's no reason to not declutter, and there are ways to manage the burden of that stuff. So let's go through some of the ways that I personally do this. Number one, get some containers. For me, this is usually a combination of boxes. These are the things that our groceries get delivered in or that we pick them up in, and then either garbage bags, which go to the donation center, or even reusable bags. Those are often more sturdy for heavier items because nobody wants to be in the situation where they have a whole pile of decluttered stuff and nothing to transport them in. It's definitely happened to me in the past, and it makes the process painfully long. So having containers is a crucial step. Number two, grab your sticky notes or a handy dandy Sharpie marker and get labeling the sections of decluttered items. So that could be donate, recycle, sell, rehome, for example, to family and friends that you know are needing specific items, because this just keeps the chaos organized, and it also just gives you a bit of a roadmap as to where these items are going once you're done decluttering your spaces. And you also won't be as tempted to throw things in the trash or give everything away to donation in one fell swoop, especially those items that you know you can get some money for. Before I do anything else, I think it's time to say goodbye to these tulips. Sorry that you had to see those. They were on their last leg of life. So I'm gonna now organize what I've got on the table so far. I'm gonna keep this section over here as the pile of things that I'm gonna sell. I'm gonna move this as well. I have a feeling that I'm gonna have a pretty big donation pile, so I'm gonna keep that on the right side of the table. And then anything that I am going to recycle, I'll just put right here. I just have like a mental idea of where everything is gonna be going. And for me, that's good enough. For you, you might wanna have sticky notes in every single spot, and that's okay too. The third thing is to set time aside to actually get rid of the items. So I feel like for me in the past, I haven't really allotted time to rehoming or bringing my decluttered items to the donation center or recycling, things like that. And it always feels like a bit of a burden at the end of the hard work of decluttering. So setting some time aside, or at least just knowing, you know, I need 30 minutes to an hour to actually get this stuff out of my home is very important in managing the chaos that is your decluttered pile. And one last essential step that I always do is to decide where I'm going to store the items that I'm selling. This is always a bit of an irritation point for me because I do try to sell a lot of the things that I declutter because they're in good shape. They still have value and I want them to be, you know, rehomed to someone who's going to appreciate them as much as we did. So for things like this massive blanket, I might post this on Facebook Marketplace, for example, and then restore it in the ottoman in our home because that just makes the most sense. We have space there, and then it's not out in the open, but at least I know where it is. Getting rid of the items that you've decluttered from your home is the final step in this process, and decluttering isn't really complete until you do this. But with some intentionality, it doesn't have to be a stressful part of the process. Truth number 3 is that your motives will determine the effectiveness of your decluttering. When I first started decluttering, I made some drastic changes to the amount of stuff that I owned. You can see it in my very first decluttering videos on my channel. And even though I believed my end goal was to own less stuff, it took a long time for my habits, my shopping habits, to reflect that and to change to reflect that. And I even unknowingly admitted this in an old vlog clip. Take a look here.
Which I'm actually gonna do maybe in a month or two once my closet kind of gets out of hand again.
The lack of clarity that I had in terms of the motivation behind my decluttering efforts ended up making those decluttering efforts more of a make room for new type of situation. Now, I know I'm not the only one to experience this. I feel like this is what most people might go through when they just start decluttering. So I guess that's why I want to stress that I believe this is super important to just get clear on the motivations behind your decluttering in the first place, like before you actually do it, so that you don't reverse all of the progress that you make down the road. You know, is the motivation to clear any anxieties that you have or to create mental clarity? Is the motivation to be able to fit into a new and smaller place that you might be moving? Is the motivation to just streamline the spaces that you live in? Because if we're not careful and we're not clear on our motivations, then our decluttering efforts can become this perpetual cycle of declutter, buy, rinse, and repeat. This might be where you're currently at in your decluttering journey, and that's totally okay. It's a learning process, it's a journey, so there's gonna be ups and downs. Just know that with some intention, you can make those changes in your shopping habits and make your decluttering efforts even more effective and last. I think reflection is a crucial part of the decluttering process, and what helped me in the beginning was journaling about not only my decluttering efforts and kind of what I was going through mentally as I was decluttering, you know, how I felt during and how I felt after, but also how I was feeling when I was wanting to buy new things and to go out and replace certain items or bring in new things just because I had the space for them. It can be a really, really helpful catalyst for change. Truth number 4 is that the maybe I'll need it someday items never really go away. These items can be some of the hardest to part with aside from sentimental objects, and they often tend to linger for days, months, even years throughout multiple declutters. So let's just go through a couple of examples. One I have right beside me here is cords. I have 3 of the exact same micro USB and 2 USB-C cords. And we also have a couple more of these that are just currently in use. I've kept these because I've thought maybe we'll need them someday. It's good to have a backup if the ones that we're using right now break. Maybe I'll need to charge various items at the exact same time when realistically we don't even have enough cubes to actually charge them at the same time. This is a common occurrence and it happens with various categories of products. And getting rid of them is hard because there's always that nagging feeling of what if. Another category of item that fits this description for us in our home personally is baby stuff. So obviously we've got baby number 2 on the way, but we've kept a lot of things, even things that we didn't really use for my daughter, and we kept them just in case we might need them again. So I've kind of made the decision that if we don't use them for baby number 2, then they need to be rehomed. As our lives change, these maybe items will change too, and that's just the reality of owning stuff. But it can be really helpful to remember that the cost of storing and maintaining these items often outweighs the potential future benefit of them. So when it comes to the just in case or the maybe items for myself in our home, I have a few questions that help me really drill down on whether or not we need to be keeping them. Number 1 is, when was the last time that I actually needed this item? Because these items are often duplicates, they're often repeat items of things that we have that are in use, and they're there just in case, as a backup, as an emergency product. So it's important to really think about when we actually needed that backup, or when we needed to use multiple of them at the same time, like my cords, for example. The second question is, how much would it actually cost to replace the item if I needed it down the road? If this cost is super low and you're okay carrying that potential future cost, then maybe you don't need to be storing all of these extras right now. And number 3, how easy would it be to borrow or rent the item if you needed it again? Which brings me to truth number 5. Truth number 5. You might not be ready to let go of some things, and that's okay. Some items need to be decluttered multiple times until you're ready to truly let go of them. Let me share an example of what I mean by this. Between my husband and I, we have a bin full of bits and pieces dating back to 11 years ago when we first started dating. And in addition to that, we saved all of the wedding cards from our wedding 3 years ago now. And in the 2 to 3 times that we've gone through that bin together, we've been able to let go of more and more of those pieces. And it's not because they mean less, but more so because we realize that we're the ones that are getting and feeling sentimental. It's not the objects themselves that are sentimental, because we have the memories from that day, we have photos, we know who was there, you know, sharing those special moments with us, and we also still share the love with each other that is within those bits and pieces from within the years of our relationship. This applies to hundreds of scenarios, and I do believe that taking a slow and gradual approach towards these types of items is the gentlest way to deal with them, so that we get rid and let go of them gracefully and without regret. I'm realizing that I have way too many pajamas, and There's one pair that I've been keeping, but it actually has holes in it, so I think it's time to let those ones go. Truth number 6, extreme minimalism isn't realistic for most people. You do not have to be a minimalist or try to be a minimalist in order to be intentional about the things that you buy and own. It's very possible to be inspired by the principles of minimalism and not be down to adopt it in every single area of your life. Everything in moderation, right? I honestly wouldn't even consider myself an extreme minimalist. And when I say extreme minimalist, I mean living with the absolute bare essentials and nothing more. I find value in things that make our house feel like a home. So you'll see those in our spaces, but they remain the same because I am content with what we have and I'm not out seeking more. And that's where the principles of minimalism come in. You might be someone who's really into photography, so you've got a bunch of camera equipment that seems extra to other people, but brings genuine value to your creative work. The goal of decluttering isn't to strip your life down to the absolute bare minimum, but rather to be mindful about what you keep in your home and your spaces to ensure that everything you own serves a real purpose or brings genuine joy and value into your daily life. That's where minimalism and practical decluttering find their sweet spot. If you are decluttering your wardrobe maybe right now, I do have a separate video on that where I've shared some of the things that I've learned in that specific item category and just the things that have helped me push back at some obstacles that I've faced during a wardrobe declutter. So I will link that above if you're interested in watching that one. And in the past, I have not shared in-depth explanations of what I've actually decluttered from our home and why I'm decluttering those items. But this time around, I've decided to do exactly that with everything that I have decluttered today. So you've seen bits and pieces here and there of what I'm getting rid of, but I want to share my reasoning behind that. This will be the first of many videos exclusive to members of this channel only. It's something new that I'm offering here, and if you're interested in finding out more, I will leave a link to that below. As always, thank you for taking the time to join me today. I wish you luck on your decluttering journey, and I will see you in the next one.